October 22nd, 2025 meeting of the Transportation Commission to order. And I'm just double checking one. We just have a quorum with 6, according to my count. So please don't anybody leave right now, unless somebody else comes, or we'll be losing our quorum. So Ariana, if you'd like to read the instructions, please.
Welcome to our virtual meeting. We're going to cover a few basic items before beginning. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. To members and city staff, members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak or ask questions. Staff, click raise hand when you're asked a question. The chair will do their best to call on committee members in the order in which hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak. The name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the commission, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ariana. Aiden, if you call a roll, please.
Sure. William Olkovich. Sean O'Brien.
Present. I also want to note Dina is going to be about 5-10 minutes late.
Barbara Harrington McKinney. Ann Kovich.
Here.
Robbie Weber.
Here.
Pepe Barros.
I'm here, and just apologies, I'm going to be turning on my camera in a few minutes.
Okay, thanks, Pepe.
Chris McCahill.
Here.
Harold Kleems.
Here.
And then Denise Jess, Bill Bremer, Kaylee Jameson, and Lynn Olson are all excused tonight.
Okay, thanks. All right. We don't have any alternates here tonight, so we don't have to worry about that. Everybody have a chance to take a look at the minutes from the last meeting. Harold.
Move approval of the minutes.
Alder O'Brien.
Second.
Thanks. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Robbie?
I'm just going to abstain since I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay. So any discussion when we see Alder Okovich join? No discussion? Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote with Robbie abstaining. Unless there's any objection. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, the motion is carried. Next, Aiden or Ariana, do we have anybody registered to speak under item 1?
We do not, no.
Okay. Are there any disclosures or recusals this evening? Okay, I'm seeing no hands. Next, we have the consent agenda. We have items number 2 through 5 proposed for the consent agenda. Do we have anybody registered to speak on the consent agenda?
We do not, but we do have a few people registered not wishing to speak, but in support for item 4.
Okay, good to know. All right, does anybody wish to have any item separated from the consent agenda? Okay, I'm seeing no hands. So we have item 2, which is Legistar 90103. With regard to amending the City of Madison official map to remove map reservations for future public streets located on Block 2 of the University addition to Madison in the northwest quarter. Of Section 23, Township 7 North, Range 9 East in the City of Madison on land generally addressed as 975 University Avenue. Excuse me. Item 3, Legislature 90173, amending the City of Madison official map to remove a mapped reservation for a future public street located in the west half of the northwest quarter of Section 31, Township 7 North, Range 10 East in the City of Madison on land addressed as 1201 Moreland Road. Item 4, Legislature 90193, supporting and approving the City of Madison applications for WISDOT for federal funding under the 2026 to 2030 Transportation Alternatives Program, TAP, the acceptance of the grant if awarded, and authorizes the mayor and city clerk to enter into a grant agreement with WISDOT if awarded the grant. And then item 5, Legislature 90495, the annual review of Metro Transit's safety plan. Is there a motion on the consent agenda? Harold,
Move approval.
Alder O'Brien.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the consent agenda. I'm assuming no discussion, since nobody wanted anything separated. Seeing no hand, Alder Harrington McKinney.
Thank you very much. And I wanted to discuss, I don't have that item up before me, but it was really talking about the safety plan. I had a couple of questions related.
Okay, excuse me, Alder. So you're asking that be separated from the
Yes.
consent agenda?
Yes, I am asking that be separated from the consent agenda.
Okay, so Harold and Alder O'Brien will, are you both comfortable amending the motion to include items 2 through 4, and then item 5 would be separated out?
Works for me.
Works for me.
Okay, so the revised motion on the consent agenda is to approve items 2, 3, and 4 on the consent agenda. Any objection to unanimous consent vote on items 2 through 4 on the consent agenda? Alder Harrington McKinney, your hand is still up. I'm assuming that's okay. Thank you. All right, so those are approved. So we'll go to item 5, and Justin's here to answer any questions. So Alder Harrington McKinney, did you want to go ahead and ask your questions?
Okay, thank you very much. I apologize, I'm on my phone. My question is, when I looked at the safety plan, I was specifically looking at the items where a school was involved. And could you say more about that? Because in some of them, the expected impact of the safety plan was at 0. But then when I looked at the priority list, they were listed from 25% to 75%. So I'm really specifically looking at how those decisions were made when there is a school in the area, if that makes sense.
I'm sorry. That part of the plan I'm not sure which part you're referring to. And
okay, let's see. I hope I pulled the right one.
It's item 5 on the agenda.
Okay. Bus stops. Oh, maybe it's Safe Street, Madison. I do apologize. Be patient with me.
it's okay.
I'm on my phone and trying to do a couple of things.
So you were looking at the priority factors in Safe Streets Madison relative to schools?
Yes, that's what I was looking at. It was really 79047.
Okay.
Safe Streets Madison. And so I pulled the wrong item. So that item 7 was passed. Will I have the opportunity to go back and ask?
We haven't done item 7 yet, Alder.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so no further questions on item number 5?
No, I pulled this up wrong item. No.
Okay, so we need a motion on item 5. Harold?
Move approval.
Okay, there's a motion. Alder O'Brien?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no or abstain. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, great. So item 5 is approved. So then we will move on to item 6, Metro Transit bus stop updates. Mike, are you doing that one?
Yep, I'm doing that one. And am I sharing my screen or is somebody else? I'm going to assume I am unless somebody else jumps in. Excuse me. Okay, so just a couple more bus stop updates. Apologize, I was eating peanuts here. So these are mainly related to our partner agencies. They have sometimes kind of a slightly different timeline than we do for various reasons. So these were not included in the larger collection of 2025 bus stop updates that was approved some time ago. So this is just a couple relatively minor additions to that. This one is in Sun Prairie. This is on Route W. We're going eastbound on Main Street at Thompson. And so we're proposing to relocate that bus stop 1 block to the west to Wildwood. The majority of the ridership at this bus stop is coming from a new apartment building that's on the south side of Main Street. There's not a pedestrian route to the existing bus stop 9363 there at the Thompson roundabout. So people have to go in kind of a circuitous pathway. There's a ditch in the way and there's some private property that's preventing the city of Sun Prairie from having a direct pedestrian connection to that bus stop. It also does not have a pad. And so they have constructed a pad at 9631 there, just to the west at Wildwood. And so we would propose to relocate that stop to the west. We do that with our December service change. The second one here is in Fitchburg. This is East Sherrill at Syene. We have 4 bus stops, two pairs, one at No Oaks, just east of Syene, and one at Crinkle Root Drive, just west of Syene Road. All 4 of these bus stops are problematic. Only one of them is technically accessible. The 2 at Crinkle Root don't have pads. The eastbound one at No Oaks, I believe, is accessible. The westbound one at No Oaks has operational problems. The buses can't get into that stop and serve the stop because of the way parking is configured. The other problem with the existing pair is that they're kind of not at the major intersection node there where people expect them to be. So all of these problems can be solved by relocating these 2 pairs to a single pair at Syene Road. The eastbound location there is already accessible. Concrete was installed with some other project by the Quick Trip, and then Fitchburg is planning on installing a new pad westbound far side of Syene Road there. So again, the basic ask here is to just consolidate these 2 pairs to a single stop pair at Syene. And then just a couple other amenities changes. Westbound Cottage Grove at Dempsey. This is where Route C splits into Route C1 and C2. We've had a number of mirror strikes with that shelter, and so we are requesting removal of the shelter at Cottage Grove and Dempsey and replace it with a bench. We have already taken this action because of the immediate need to do that. But we can undo that if this is. But we took that action because we was an immediate safety operational concern there. And then eastbound Wilson at King, this is one that we had proposed to add a bench. We are no longer proposing that after discussion with the Alder. Alder did not support the bench at that location, so we're no longer requesting that bench.
Okay, Alder Martinez Rutherford, go ahead.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Mike. Hey, I'm curious about that westbound Cottage Grove at Dempsey. Is there a possibility of replacing the shelter in a location that's further away to prevent some of those mirror strikes?
We can take a look at it. I don't believe there's a place. So the terrace, the area between the sidewalk and the curb, is often not really wide enough to install a shelter. We had basically our narrowest shelter in that location, but we can take a further look at it. The other thing is we are trying to replace some of our shelters with a newer shelter, which is a little bit slimmer and a little bit easier to fit in that place. So I'm hoping that once we get that shelter, which will take a little bit of time, we have two on order and we're trying to see if those new shelters will work. But anyway, my hope would be that those newer, slimmer shelters would eventually be appropriate for locations like this. This is not the only location where we have this problem. And so I'm hoping with those new shelters that we'll be able to install them in a few more places.
So not this winter, or are you expecting to hopefully get those in by this winter, or?
We're hoping to get them in by this winter. However, we need them at the South Transfer Point. They were destined for the South Transfer Point replacement bus stops. I could take a look if maybe one of them could be redirected here. We can take a look at some solutions. I don't have anything immediate, but we can take a look.
I think my constituents would really appreciate that as well as I would. So thank you.
Yeah, we'll take a look. Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Harold.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Mike, was there any feedback to any of these changes? I mean, we don't have anybody today or anybody who wrote in, but did you receive any?
No, we haven't received any feedback. I think the one in Sun Prairie came from a resident. I think that was kind of the origin of that. They said, we were sick of walking through the ditch. Can you put it closer to our spot? We said, yeah, we can do that.
Fair enough. And the bench or not bench now at eastbound Wilson, I think I have a pretty good sense of where people were sitting on private property. I guess they'll just keep sitting there and that's fine. I mean, it looks like it's basically built to be sat on. So, yeah.
We continue to look for solutions at that location. I mean, that we want to try to maintain the stop in that location. This is for the C bus eastbound on Wilson Street, far side of King Street. As response to complaints of people sitting on private property. Put in the bench. Turns out the cure was maybe worse than the disease on that one. I don't know. But the other thing is the Summit Credit Union is under construction there, preventing us from putting the bench as close to the stop as I would normally put it. So we might revisit this when the construction at the credit union is done. Maybe a solution will present itself.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? We would need a motion, and would that motion include trying to find a bench that would fit at westbound Cottage Grove and Dempsey? Mike, would that be reasonable?
I would say shelter.
I'm sorry. Yes, thank you for the correction. Yes. Trying to find a shelter that will fit at westbound Cottage Grove and Dempsey. I was still thinking about eastbound Wilson at King. Alder Martinez Rutherford.
I move approval with the understanding that we are looking to replace that shelter at Cottage Grove and Dempsey.
Is there a second? Alder Harrington McKinney.
I'll second that.
Okay. And so what I have for the motion is, finish writing, move approval with the understanding that we are looking to replace the shelter at Westbound Cottage Grove and Dempsey. Did I get that right, Alder? Okay. Any discussion? I usually can't write as fast as you guys can talk, so it takes me a little while to catch up. I don't see any hands. Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no, wishes to abstain, or wishes a roll call vote. So please raise your hand. Okay, seeing no hands, the motion is carried. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll move on to Safe Streets Madison. And Alder, this I believe would be the one where you were looking for some clarification from Tom, but why don't we let Tom, are you on?
Yep, I'm here.
Yep. All right. We'll let Tom do his presentation first, and then we'll field comments and questions.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, here for Safe Streets Madison. Came back earlier this year in April, and now this is the second time here for 2025. Just a reminder, we've got a web page, a lot of information there, including our full spreadsheet. I don't include that in the presentation, but it is there in an Excel file if you want to sort through projects and look at past projects approved. We've got them sorted out by different categories, so a lot of information there. Just a little bit of background for reminders about Safe Streets Madison. So these are smaller scale projects that should focus on eliminating fatalities and serious injuries and or closing gaps in the pedestrian and bike network. And then it should align with other initiatives like Vision Zero and Complete Green Streets. So for our process, we get requests all the time throughout the year. We have staff that is reviewing the requests, looking for projects. We keep that long spreadsheet. And then we're kind of continuously throughout the year scoring and ranking and designing projects. And then we bring this list of projects that we would like to have you approve twice per year. So like I said, we were here in April and now here today. And then we do some pre-screening in the office. We need to consider that, there's a lot of other things going on throughout the city. So we do some cross-referencing with other projects. So this is a map of our Safe Streets for All federal grant projects. So some different locations, and we have these locations included in the spreadsheet, and it's just noted in one of the columns that it's an upcoming Safe Streets for All project. But we cross-reference other things such as the Transportation Improvement Plan. We don't include these in the spreadsheet, but this is something we're always thinking of. If there is an upcoming reconstruction on the street, we're not going to install a smaller scale project unless it's really inexpensive or something like that. Thinking about North-South BRT, I think there are a few projects listed in the spreadsheet that reference upcoming North-South BRT project that we're going to hold off and wait for. I just want to mention the high injury network. So this is kind of a big part of the scoring process. And I mentioned this earlier back in April, but our current high injury network is from 2022, where we are working on that through the Safe Streets for All grant. The TOPS lab is working on creating a pedestrian-only high entry network and a bicycle-only high entry network that should be completed by the end of the year. And then the overall high entry network should be completed around this time next year. So for funding, these are just the numbers, the yearly funding for Safe Streets Madison. For the 2026 budget, Common Council hearings are in about a month, 3 weeks. But the 1.4 million is the executive budget. So the projects that we're approving today will be for the 2026 year. So it's kind of contingent on that budget passing. But what we're looking for is a pretty, a fairly small portion of that 2026 budget. I just wanted to show you that we actually are installing these projects. So I was going to go through some of the projects that were constructed this year. So everything I'm about to show you was done since I was here last in April. University Avenue, we added the green in the bike lane. So this is from Bassett all the way to around Randall. Langdon Street, we added bump outs on a couple locations, Henry and Carroll Street, shorten the crossings, just to make those heavily used crosswalks easier, safer. Buick Street, this is just off of South Park Street, just to the east. That's Penn Park up in the upper right. This was a sidewalk gap on the south side that now connects to the park. A little bit further south on Badger Road, we added the sidewalk connection from Park Street to the future Center for Black Excellence and Culture building that is under construction right now, getting close to being finished. Brooks and Drake Street, this is an intersection that had crashes due to poor visibility for drivers on Brooks Street. So we bumped into Drake Street, provided a better space for drivers to be able to see oncoming traffic on Drake Street. Here's one of the RFBs. This is Pinckney at East Johnson Street. This is a kind of a long stretch between signals, the signal at Hamilton and then signal at Wisconsin Avenue, and kind of a direct route up to the Capitol Square. We just completed this. We added the left turn phase for Francis Street at University Avenue. This is a really congested movement, especially after Kohl Center events, where you have a lot of pedestrians in that crosswalk on the left side of the screen, making it difficult for anyone to turn left. So there's a lot of conflict there. This gives a protected phase. So I should say West Gilman Street is, so this picture is kind of looking from State Street towards University Avenue. We added the counterflow bike lane. This is kind of a route that people have already been using for a bike route, but we just are clarifying it here. This picture is up by Mendota Elementary School. This is the far northwest part of the city. There was missing sidewalks. We added the sidewalk that you can see on the north side of Blaine Drive and then the east side of Tobin Drive. So this is a gap on a walk route to an elementary school. This is King Street looking from Doty Street. So that's the Great Dane, the building on the right where the white car is. We removed one of the lanes and put in the buffered bike lane, which has been pretty heavily used, kind of at all times. Gammon Road at Mineral Point Road. This was the new median nose there on the left side of the screen. This is a route used by high schoolers from Memorial High School during the lunchtime. So there really wasn't any sort of protection there on that median. They just so there was kind of a conflict with left turning vehicles where the pedestrians were. So this gives them a little bit of protection. Odana Road at Gately Terrace and Parman Terrace. This is a route across Odana that connects to the southwest path, which is to the right of this picture. So this is a pretty popular walking route and bike route that this is one where we installed a temporary RFB for about a year until we got this permanent curb and sidewalk in. This is on Seagull Road at Richland Lane by the Hamilton Middle and Van Hise Elementary School. So where the crosswalk is a school walk route that had issues with U-turning vehicles and just traffic in general. So we bumped out that median nose. Little sidewalk portion of the median is all new, and then bumped out either side of Seagull Road. So basically all that concrete on the left side is new. The driveways were extended. The sidewalk ramp was extended out. And then the same thing on the right side of the picture that was also extended into the road to shorten those crossings. This is new sidewalk on the Stoughton Frontage Road. There's the Portland Parkway overpass, and this is connecting down to the new tiny home village run by Occupy Madison. So we kind of jumped on this one pretty quickly to get it done in time, and this picture is from today, so it was just recently finished. This is now, so there's the tiny home that's beginning to be built up there. So previously there was no sidewalk, no really walk connection to this site, and now that's in. So those are recent projects, and here are the projects that we are requesting approval. We've got 13 projects. We can get into these in however much detail you want. I'll just run through them really quick. There was an error on one of the estimates, and that was for Sherman at Tennyson. So now that one's bumped up. Sorry, there was 14 sites, so that one was bumped up from the bottom of the list between 4 and 5 there. It was just an error in the estimate. The estimate was really high. So that takes the total down to $301,700. And then it's sorted by the score on the right, the overall benefit to cost score. So basically that purple column, the furthest right column, is just the benefit score divided by the cost. Here's a map just showing the overview of where these are distributed throughout the city. State and Gilman Street. So this is just a location where we're going to upgrade the crosswalks. Very heavy pedestrian volume here, and there are some conflicts, some crashes with vehicles crossing there. This is Aberg Avenue, so a couple things will reduce the speed limit from 40 to 35 and upgrade the crosswalks at Shopko Drive. That's the signalized intersection. This is further west, just west of Packers Avenue on Aberg, where we do have space to fit in a bike lane connection. You can see on the left side of the screen how the bike lane just ends but we can remark the lane lines, narrow those lanes up to extend the bike lane east. This one is on Aberg. So this is kind of the same area just to the west of the previous slide. We've got enough width to add a buffer line for the bike lanes. So this is one that we discussed, I think it was last year, the Wilson Street Bike Boulevard at Baldwin Street. We added the always stop there, which has been popular. We've got positive feedback on that. So we want to do the same thing at Dickinson Street, which is where the actual path begins, or re-begins to the east of Dickinson Street. The issue is visibility for drivers of the stop sign, so we want to add islands, and we think it makes sense to do it at both locations. Baldwin isn't quite as bad for visibility as Dickinson Street is, but we think it makes sense to do this anyway, because with the stop signs in the median, I mean, it's pretty much impossible to miss those stop signs as a driver. Right now, they're just not great for visibility. Oh, and then I want to mention for this one, we are working on a project to realign that path east of Dickinson Street. That would be a separate, done outside of Safe Streets Madison, kind of as part of the bikeways project that the city has. So this would likely, the islands would likely be done before that happens, and then the path would be realigned hopefully next year. This is a kind of a different one. This is kind of on the shore of Lake Mendota here, Lakeland Avenue. This is an effigy mound that people have been walking. You can kind of see the path there where the sidewalk would be. However, they're walking on the effigy mound. So we work with Parks to come up with a plan to provide a space for people walking to get around that. So right now, this is a recent picture, so it's just blocked off with barricades, as you can see, and people are forced to go in the street. So we want to provide them some protection. We looked into getting a path around the south side of it, so kind of right in between the mound and the lake. But that doesn't seem to be popular. I think there's just not a feeling of safety going that way, so most people prefer to walk in the street. So that's what we're planning here, and there is enough width in Lakeland to provide that. It wouldn't be ADA accessible. It would just be providing some protection for people walking along that path. This is Monroe Street at Grant Street. This was some feedback from crossing guards that the no turn on red would help, and upgrading the crosswalks. This is at the far north side, Kennedy at Northport. So this is where we had a fatality earlier in the year. So we looked at the intersection and found that we can do some upgrades to the markings, to video detection for the signals, where we can rest it in red. So I think the way that would work is the signal would be in red for Northport Drive, especially late at night, to help cut down on people that are coming from the Waunakee area really fast in this direction, to provide some sort of some way of slowing them down before they get further east. And then we would upgrade to APS signals. Elderberry Road, this is far west side. This is just kind of a linking together sections of crosswalk that otherwise they're just kind of dead ends. This one is just for our shop to purchase additional bike racks that we would deploy throughout the city. We don't have specific locations, but we kind of just do these as they come up. Our inventory is out, so that's the ask here. So now rectangular rapid flashing beacons. So we've got a few of these pretty much every time we come for project approval. They rank really high in the scoring system. But one of the things that's come up recently is the topic of adding buttons on the opposite crosswalk that the flasher is on. So we've got that in a few locations. The most recent one is on East Doty at Pinckney Street. So you can push the button on the west crosswalk to activate the flasher on the east crosswalk. The issue that we've had here is we've tried to do it wirelessly, which is the least expensive option, but we've had issues with the connectivity between the push button and the flasher. We think it's mostly due to the battery required for the push button. But in summary, we just don't want to use the wireless anymore because they've caused so many issues. We've got to go out, pretty routinely to fix those issues. So we would potentially do this wired, or there's another option of putting flashers on both sides of the intersection with push buttons. So if you, as a pedestrian, push one button, it would activate all flashers. I was going to include a picture here. I don't think I did. But either way, it basically doubles the cost of an RRFB. But with that option, having flashers and signs on all four corners, we could continue to use the less expensive option of the RRFB. We wouldn't have to go overhead. They can be installed pretty much in one day. But it would just be kind of doubling, each location would be doubling the cost. But I think the way that we would do that, we're looking for your feedback, but we'd probably look at it on a case-by-case basis. But I think in a lot of cases it does make sense. This comes up from seeing RFB locations, and then you see pedestrians crossing on the other crosswalk and not activating the flashers. So, this slide is just kind of going over how we score RFBs. We have changed how we score them. Instead of using a flat scoring for any RRFB location, we are taking into account the higher volume streets, the number of lanes, because this is kind of going back to like the Southwest commuter path and West Washington Avenue, and how the RFB didn't operate great there with the 4 lanes. So here are the 4 locations we're asking for approval. 3 school locations, and then Dayton and Carroll. Go through these real quick. So on Davie Street here, you can kind of faintly see in the image the new path on the northwest side of Davie Street. So this would be an RFB that links that path to the school. For Dayton Street at Carroll Street, this is just a map of the outer loop, showing where we have existing signals and RRFBs. So Dayton and Carroll. is a really popular walk route. We've got the parking garage right there. A lot of events that happen at the top of State Street. That's kind of the main place for people to park. So that's a main route, walk route. Right now we've just got signs there, but we think it does make sense to get an RFP. Shown at Tennyson, this is by Lakeview Elementary School. This was a crossing guard request to assist them on the north side of that north crosswalk of Tennyson. Monroe Street at Terry Place. So this is actually a school bus stop location for Franklin Elementary on Lakeside. But a lot of kids cross here on this crosswalk to get to that school bus and go home from being dropped off. And we have a couple speed limit reductions. The Aberg one I showed, Hayes Road. Hayes Road is kind of just north of East Washington Avenue near East Springs. We had a project there a couple of years ago to add in islands, but we think it makes sense to reduce the speed limit there. It's all residential. And install a driver feedback sign along with that. So again, the full project list is in the Excel spreadsheet that is posted on the project webpage. And that is it for my presentation.
Thanks, Tom. Let me just double check with Aiden. Before the meeting, I was told we didn't have anybody registered to speak on this item. Is that still the case?
That is correct. We do have Mike Tarby that's registered as available for questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, so comments or questions for Tom? Alder Okovich, let's see, sorry, going first, Alder Evers, go ahead.
And particularly with parents of young children. So these two proposals, the one at Grant and the one at Terry Place, I'd ask that you would approve. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Alder. Robbie, you're next.
So thank you. This is all of the projects look good. And my question is not so much about a specific project, but in general about no right turn on red signs. I noticed that most of the time they are on the near side, and I think many drivers do not, they pull past them and then they don't notice them. So is there a reason, like an MUTCD reason, to not put the no turn on red on the far side of the intersection so that drivers see them?
No, that is kind of our standard, is to put them on both. I know there are locations where we only have them on the near side. I think a lot of those went in with the BRT project, but we're trying to update those to both near side and far side whenever we notice that. And we are kind of looking at the overall no turn on red sign placement throughout the city, and we do plan to bring that as an agenda item sometime soon. I think we briefly mentioned it maybe earlier this year, and we are looking into it right now.
Yeah, it's on our list. It was one of the items that was brought up by at least two or three different TC members, Tom. And right now we tentatively have it on for the second meeting in November, I think. So okay. We'll see. It depends on when staff's ready.
Yep.
Okay. I just wondered because I yet again, crossing from a BRT station, saw multiple people turn right on red where there is no right turn on red allowed, and just wondered if, a sign on the other side of the road would maybe keep them from doing that a little. I know that it's never going to be 100%, but I know they can't see the no right turn on red from where they're stopped. And so that's why I wondered. So thank you for at least answering my question that there isn't a, guidelines rule that says you can't do it. Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Robbie. We'll have a lot more deeper discussion, I think, coming up at a future meeting on that. Alder Okovich, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks, Tom. So first, the RFB at Dayton and Carroll, I think, is a great idea. This is something that has come up a lot at Downtown Coordinating Committee as we're talking about the Mifflin and Carroll Plaza redesign. There is no RFB there, but there is a fair number of people who are trying to cross the street there, and this is definitely a location that has needed one. So I think it's great. On the State, Gilman, and Broome intersection, my question is less about the specific Safe Streets project for the Continental Crosswalks, but there are at least 2 proposals for new construction south of that intersection on Gilman, down, I guess, upstream of the one-way. And if both of those are approved, there could be a fair number of additional, if they're approved as proposed, there would be a fair number of additional cars going up the street. Have you or anyone else on traffic engineering been thinking about how to increase safety at this intersection if those proposals are approved?
Yeah, I know the proposals you're talking about. I don't think we've looked into anything specific yet for those for this intersection, but that may be something that comes up in the future. Yeah.
Okay. It would be, I mean, one reason to get out of it now is if there is going to be an impact from those proposals, like we could look at impact fees or other sources of financing. I'm thinking like speed bumps on Gilman leading up to the intersection, or I don't want to signalize the intersection if it can be avoided. But if that's what it is going to require for it to be safe, like you said, that's a very busy intersection. It's a confluence 6-way intersection. And so,
yeah.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Harrington McKinney, go ahead. We can't hear you, Alder. There you go. Okay.
I'm on my phone, and so the phone has been ringing. I was specifically looking at around the area of school safety, and so I looked at item number 5, number 7, number 8, and number 14, and they were around a school. And I'm specifically asking because on the Schrader Road, and that's not on there, we have kiddos walking, using the walking school bus, walking down Schrader, and there is a school that they're walking to that's a Nana school. So walking school bus, there's construction there, and there's been a fatality in that area. And so I'm just really asking, what's the look there in terms of why it didn't make the list? Is it something future, or where's the concern level for that area? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I'd have to look back at the spreadsheet. I think that one is on there, and I think it is being held off. We are that's part of the Safe Streets for All grant. So we are putting out an RFQ as early as tomorrow for that project. So we will have a consultant on board to look at Schrader Road as a whole for projects like that. I think that's the reason that we didn't propose anything there, because that's part of that Safe Streets for All grant.
Okay, but it is on the horizon and it is going to be worthy of consideration. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Right, yep.
Okay, all right. That specifically really was my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Alder, Yang has his hand up too, so he may have something to add. Go ahead, Yang. We can't, you're still muted, Yang.
Sorry about that. Yeah, trying to get myself unmuted.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go.
just sorry about that. Yeah, just want to confirm what Tom said. So that actually all included in the actually a pretty big project for the whole Schroeder Road corridor. Actually, I believe the RFP was released this morning, so it should be out there already for consultants to respond to. And once we get that settled, select someone to work with us, we'll start to engage the neighborhoods. We'll reach out to you other Hart and McKinney, and we'll look into a more systematic way. How can we improve safety along that corridor? It's definitely much needed. So thank you.
Excellent. I'm a happy camper. Thank you so very much, staff. I'm glad that you're really looking at that area in terms of overall safety. I'm complete, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Alder. Harold, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Tom, and thanks for inserting those slides of the completed projects. I think it's very nice to we have these long lists of projects, and I mean, I've seen some of them in person, probably not all of us have, and I haven't seen all of them, so it's nice to see the impact that this program has on our infrastructure. A couple things to go to in hopefully a reasonable order. Aberg between Packers and Everett, so adding the bike lanes there. I wonder, is there a larger plan for that area? Because there's the bike path, it ends, then it turns into bike lanes that are not really great for a road like Aberg. If you want to use the new bike lanes and you're going westbound, you have to make this awkward crossing. There's the off-ramp from Packers. So yeah, I think adding the bike lanes doesn't hurt, but I think that area just needs a bigger solution. And I wonder if that's something that you or anybody has looked at.
Yeah, we've kind of been holding off on any bigger project because of North-South BRT here. But so I guess that's really the answer that, pretty much anywhere where North-South BRT is, that's going to be making bigger changes. We've kind of been not as focused on. So we could incorporate changes with BRT. So that's, maybe that's something that we could look into here for that crossing.
Yeah, the other piece, I guess, is the Oscar Mayer redevelopment, which might be, I looked at the property lines on the south side, thinking can we just continue the shared use path away from the interchange and then maybe have a crossing a little bit farther over, but the property line, there's not a whole lot of space. The sidewalk is already kind of crammed in. So yeah, that might require redevelopment at some point. But yeah, as I said, painting the bike lanes is cheap, doesn't hurt. Probably people will cut through the bike lane when they're going eastbound because it's in a turn and that's what people in cars tend to do, but it's still probably an improvement over what we have now. So yeah.
Harold, Christoph has his hand up, so he may have some feedback for you.
Yep, just wanted to first say when doing the all ages and abilities bike plan, this is part of town is actually a bit of a riddle since the Starkweather Creek path sort of just kind of fizzles around here and feels like it ought to be a much stronger bike connection. And there's destinations like Warner Park that are very much up this way. So sort of thinking where our primary bike connection through here wants to be, I think is something that we've already done quite a bit of staff thinking on, though I don't know that we have any conclusions yet.
Yeah, keep looking, because I was just working on a project that looks at where school travel, and this is a major bottleneck for people traveling to East High, where it's pretty good facilities with the Starkweather Creek path and all of that, but this is awful. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's really a big missing link in our network over here.
Yeah. All right. Maybe a little bit of an overarching comment related to the Lakeland and the bike parking projects. I have some concerns about those, not as the projects. Like adding bike parking is great. Dealing with the people not walking on the mound is really important. I'm not totally sure if safe streets should be the mechanism for adding bike parking specifically. Like, I think it is advantageous, like the program is called Safe Streets, and that's how we're communicating to the public. It's improving safety, and buying 50 bike racks, I'm not totally sure. I mean, it only scores well because it's cheap, and I think you gave it a pretty high score in the bike priority rating, which, like, fair enough. But I think, maybe at least in the future, we should think about, should there be a different funding mechanism for bike parking? Because it is a need, it's important. I'm not totally convinced that Safe Streets Madison is the way we should fund these, because I think there's a risk if there's a perception like, oh, why are they paying for stuff that obviously doesn't improve safety, that could have some larger implications for the whole program. And with Lakeland, I mean, the safety concern is people walking in the street because parks closed off the informal walking routes. So I guess they're more thinking like, shouldn't this be parks' problem to solve it? But I mean, whatever, again, it's pretty cheap. But yeah, those are, I don't know. I mean, could the bike parking be part of the bikeways program, or does it need its own budget line item in the future? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think the argument, and yeah, we kind of struggle with this too, is does it fit in with Safe Streets Madison? I think the argument for the bike parking is technically it does kind of fill the bike connection gaps where if there isn't a place to put your bike, are people going to go there? So that's kind of more on the bike network connectivity aspect. But yeah, it is definitely a gray area.
Let's see, Yang has his hand up, maybe.
Yang, did you have anything to add, or is your hand up from before?
Maybe biking and can't take down his hand.
I think, oh, there he goes. Okay. Alder Harrington, go ahead, Harold. I don't mean to cut you off.
No worries. Could you pull up the Elderberry project? Where did my screen go?
I will go to Google Earth here. So this is kind of a zoomed out view right here.
Yeah, there's been a lot of development, so the aerial imagery might not even be the most recent.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm mostly wondering, given all the development happening there, like there's no developer who's going to build that sidewalk for us?
I think the issue is, I'm not sure exactly when this was built. I think it was probably a missed opportunity at the time. I think this sidewalk, these phases were a little bit older, maybe. So yeah, on the north side, it's been there for a few years. The south side is fairly new, but that may be something we could look into. Whether we can include that with another phase or an existing phase.
And where exactly do you want it? Like, where would the new sidewalk run? I guess I was kind of confused about that too.
I think we were looking at, let's see. I might have to, I do see Sean is here. I might have to defer to Sean on this one. Sean Malloy.
Yeah. So essentially we're going to be creating a mid-block crosswalk here. So the sidewalk on the north has been there quite a while, several years when that was developed. And then the south side is starting to develop. Actually, there's a plan to get the sidewalk all the way to Bear Claw. And that it might even be built already, but we have plans for that. I will say I think we did miss the opportunity to have the developer create that mid-block crosswalk. I think that unfortunately we didn't have that included in their plans, but it is almost built out, the sidewalk in this area. And you know, it's going to connect, east of Bear Claw to that, there's a little subdivision in there. So it was kind of just a gap that we had not really recognized when we created the plans and issued them, unfortunately. And then, you know, as it started to kind of get built out, we heard from residents that, you know, they were interested in walking to those areas. So it kind of was unfortunate, but I think it's a small enough project where it's going to have some benefit. And, you know, another thing of note is that area on the north side of Elderberry, that's a field. We don't expect that property to develop in the near future, unfortunately. You know, that would be another opportunity to, you know, close this gap, but we expect that to remain as is for the foreseeable future. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was looking at that field and like, that's not going to stay a field very long, but maybe it is. So yeah, okay, that makes sense. And so we're basically not building sidewalk, we're more building a crossing with like maybe like a little bit of additional sidewalk. Okay, very good. You asked for feedback on the RRFB thing. I think your suggestion to treat it on a case-by-case basis makes sense. I think there are some intersections where it's quite inconvenient to like only have it on one side, and then because the other crossing is kind of long or uncomfortable, and so you're like, I don't want to bother walking over, push the button and then cross, so I'll just cross here. So in those situations it would make sense. But I don't think that's true for every RRFB that I've encountered. So I think using staff judgment for it is good. And then, I mean, if you do propose that, then of course that's going to increase the cost, which might change the score on the spreadsheet. And then, yeah, maybe then it doesn't make as much sense anymore. So I don't know. That's my feedback on that. And last point, so I think you said the overall budget for all these projects is around 310,000 or something like that, and the total budget for the program for 2026, if adopted, is 1.1 billion. I wish million. So I guess we're planning to have. I mean, are you going to be able to spend those 1.1 million, or like how are we going to make sure to actually use the money in a good way?
Yeah, we do have quite a few outstanding projects that have been previously approved that we're working on design. So some of those are more expensive. So the plan was we'll get together our bigger citywide concrete contract this winter, and then we'll have a better idea once we get that put together how much remainder we'll have for the rest of 2026. So just as an example, our 2025 contract was over $2 million. So I guess what I'm saying is that the money will be put to use for sure. We're not gonna.
That's what I want to hear.
Yeah, we're not gonna leave anything on the table.
Yeah, the number I wrote down, the revised number I wrote down, Harold, was 301,700 for the revised amount. Is that correct, Tom?
Yep, that was revised with Sherman Tennyson change.
Okay, and the 2026 proposed budget is $1,411,100, according to what I have here, Harold.
Thank you.
So you're right. There'd be about $1.1 million left for other things after this.
Right. That's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Harold. Alder Harrington McKinney, go ahead.
Thank you. And I'm going to double back related to Harold's questioning about the Lakeland Avenue and the cost for that. I wasn't really sharply clear on staff explanation of why this particular item fits Safe Street Madison. And the reason I bring it back is that we have so many areas of concerns from the expected impact on safety, the high injury network, and those kind of categories. And Safe Street Madison, the 20 is plenty. That has been a very powerful nationwide project, and I'm really concerned that we really adhere to those standards. So could staff go back and kind of give me some kind of comfort? And I wasn't really sure about the answer that you gave to Harold, that it doesn't quite fit, or did I mishear? So that's why I want to clarify what I heard and to be more comfortable about how this landed within the Safe Street Madison network.
Yeah, good question. So when I think when Safe Streets Madison was created, it was kind of under three different main categories. One was fatalities and injuries, just overall safety, traffic safety. The second was filling gaps in the pedestrian network. And the third was filling gaps in the bike network. So the argument for this one is that it falls under the second category of filling gaps within the pedestrian network. This is a pretty popular route, as you can tell with how the path is worn there. And we kind of looked at all options of what we could do to keep a pedestrian route through here, whether we could force them across the street, but there isn't a great connection. You know, people are trying to hug the lake and continue down Lakeland to get them to cross Lakeland and then cross again and then cross again. It's just not realistic. We were hoping we could get a path on the south side, but that's also what we heard, was that people don't feel safe walking down there, and it would take, it's not lit. It would take some work by Parks to try to get a path through there. So really the only option and what people are doing now are just walking in the street. So the argument is, it ranks high enough because it's a relatively low cost option to continue the walk route, kind of how people are using it. Normally this would be a Parks issue, but because of where the effigy is located, they can't provide anything on the Parks property for pedestrians to use, other than, like I mentioned, going very far, closer to the lake, but that's not a great route. So normally we would say, this is a Parks issue. Parks has got to come up with a way to get people through here, but I think the effigy, there's a portion that's all the way to the curb that we can't provide any sort of walk route along there.
Okay, and I am glad that I asked for the further consideration, because what here now is that you looked at every possible effort, and you looked and talked with Parks as well to see if there was any other solution to the stated problem. And so the fact that you really evaluated that in such an extensive way really helps me to understand that, this might not fit the traditional Safe Street framework, but it does in a way. And so that's really what I wanted to hear is that, we looked at alternatives, and there absolutely is no alternative that we in Parks could find but this one. And so that's probably what I needed to hear. Thank you for going back over that for me.
Yep, no problem.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Figueroa Cole, go ahead.
Thank you. My question is about the budget. You mentioned something about $1,411,000. Is that the budget for 2025 or is that the 2026 budget?
That's 2026.
And are these changes that you proposing are for 2026 or for this year?
These will all be at the earliest 2026 projects.
With the budget from 2026 or the 2025 budget?
From 2026.
Okay.
So this is pretty much all looking for next year.
Okay. So then for the 2025 funding, is that depleted?
No, we still have available funding for 2025, but we do have outstanding projects. So pretty much all of that funding is covered with outstanding projects that are currently in design. So most of those, almost all of those outstanding projects would also be, it's kind of like a rolling process of design 1 year, depending on the level of design that's needed. So like sidewalk or anything that involves grading that needs survey work is usually pushed out pretty far, at least a year, sometimes more like 2 years. Simple projects that is just paint, we can have a quick turnover on that, in just a few months. But yeah, we're working on design right now for a contract that will use 2025 funds, but the contract will be go out this winter and be constructed in 2026. So some of these projects that I'm showing could be done in 2026, but some will likely be done, 2027. Just depends on the complexity of the design.
Yeah, so I not for this meeting, but I really like to understand that the funding for that rolling of the funding from 2025, 2026, and maybe 2024, 25, 26, to see if there and the staff levels to see if there's any amendments that need to be done for this particular project in the budget for next year. I just really kind of close to not exactly what Barbara McKinney was asking specifically about this, but the list keeps on getting bigger and bigger, and I know that that is the ratio that we do this project is based on 1, funds and 2, staff levels. So I really, now that we are talking about budget, we're about to close the budget season for 2026. I would like to understand what that looks like for the next season, and also understand how much did we do. We chopped out of the list on the past 2 years. So again, not specific to this round, but I really want that conversation to happen soon here. So if you guys can reach out to me after this meeting sometime, I would really appreciate it.
Yep, will do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Other comments or questions? Okay, so as I understand it, Tom, we have a request to approve $301,700 of Safe Streets Madison projects, which would be contingent on the 2026 Safe Streets Madison budget being approved in an amount sufficient to fund these projects. Would that be correct?
Yep, that's correct.
So, other comments or questions, or is someone willing to make a motion? Harold.
I would make a motion to approve the list of projects.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the list of projects. And would that be subject to the 2026 budget being approved?
Are you asking me?
Yes, because otherwise I don't think we have funding. Is that right, Tom?
Right. Yeah, I would put that in there, that caveat.
Sure.
Okay, so approve the list of projects contingent on the 2026 budget for Safe Streets Madison being approved. Is that okay, Harold?
Yep, that sounds good to me.
Okay, Alder Okovich?
I will second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? And sorry, that's my cat who wants to be fed some more food in the background, meowing really loudly there. So, Alder Okovich, go ahead.
I want to say it's great to see these projects continue to go through. It's nice to see a city that actually really cares about making streets safer and improving quality of life for everyone.
Yeah, it's a really awesome program, Alder, and I was in part of the subcommittee that put Safe Streets Madison together, and it was just a really wonderful experience. And every time we discussed the projects, it's just really rewarding. I think my favorite was when we had a number of school children come and testify before us, telling us about the need for some things that would make it safer for them to get around Madison. So really thrilled about that. And Tom, something that's come up several times, and we mentioned it quite a number of times tonight, relates to schools and the priority and importance of these projects that are located near schools. And, we haven't formalized that. Isn't that right, Tom? I mean, there are many of the factors that come in related to schools, but just something to think about for the future. Do we need to add a priority factor related to schools, or do you think it's covered well enough in the prioritization? So I'll ask your thoughts, Tom, and it looks like we have a couple other folks who may want to weigh in on that. So go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I think the first round we did kind of divide it out into two separate lists. We had the typical list, and then we had a school list. And we do keep track of the school locations. So the way we've been doing it now is just kind of mentioning this is a school location, or especially the elementary schools. And we do get a lot of good suggestions because those are such, a big focus on the schools, and we've got crossing guards and we've got a good relationship there. So we get a lot of good feedback from them. So yeah, if we wanted to formalize that in some way, or if we think it's working fine the way it is, I'd be fine going either way, because we are keeping track of those, so we could separate them out if we wanted to go that way.
Yeah, there's just such a priority. I hear it every time we talk about the projects, it comes up. So Alder Figueroa-Cole, go ahead.
I mean, I'd just like to make a suggestion about, in general, on the policy in general. I mean, I think it's a great policy. I absolutely appreciate the thoughtful process to have a concept that is based on equity, not just based on just the people that had the time to come and advocate for their own street. So I appreciate that we have a system and a matrix in place to determine the scores for these projects. But I don't know how old the policy is at this moment. I think it's been around for as long as I've been an Alder. I think it would be great at some point, maybe the Transportation Commission, to have an agenda item, a miscellaneous agenda item for their meeting, to have a refresher of what this policy does, so the new Alders get familiar with it, as well as community members. I get a lot of questions about these policies in particular, to the point that I'll be working on writing a blog about it, so people understand where to go to. But it would be great to hear from you guys that put it together, your perspectives, and where can the policy be enhanced, and what, like the school situation, what areas can we improve on the process. Yeah, so just my suggestion would be, or my ask, if that at some point, if you guys can put this on your agendas to give a quick introduction to the public and new Alders how this works, it would be great. It will save me some time, because I can just use the link and say, here's the explanation of the policy. It will be great.
Sure. Yeah, and Transportation Commission is authorized to make changes to the program. So I don't know, Tom, something we might want to think about doing in the spring when you're getting ready to come back to us. Great suggestion, Alder. Thanks. Harold, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. now I'm feeling really old because like, oh, the policy has been around for so long, and I was part of creating it, and I was like, yeah, I guess it has been a couple of years. I guess just brief comment that like, yeah, maybe this is worth a longer discussion as we have make it its own agenda item on the school piece. I do have some recollection that I think we grappled with this in the subcommittee. I think the other piece to this is also transit, because that's another issue where like you have bus stops at intersections that are difficult to cross, and the last step of your trip on transit is walking. And so I think that's another big piece. What I remember why we did not have like a separate school or transit category is I think the idea was that those were going to be wrapped into the scoring for the ped and bike gap, with the thought like, okay, ped bike gap, that is where there is need based on high demand, high volume, or priority populations, such as like transit users, students. And so the idea was, I think, like, yeah, near a school, your bike gap closing score would be higher than if it were small residential street where you have low density housing, not too many people walking. I could be misremembering this or making it up on the go, but yeah, I think that's how we thought about it back then. But yeah.
I do remember that conversation, Harold. And maybe it might be just as easy as Tom said, just to have an identifier that reminds people that this is school related, because that just is such a priority for people. So it may be taken adequately into account in the prioritization and in the score, but people may just want to have that, school, so maybe like you said, Tom, maybe just identifying the school projects might be another option. Go ahead. Is that all you had then, Harold? Okay. Alder Harrington McKinney, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to circle back and with three comments. One is that I'm a newer alder, and so I wasn't on the Transportation Commission when it was combined from the two. So the Alder's recommendation of a recap, because even sitting in this space now, and I can always go back and read the previous two commissions, but I can always tell who's been within the transportation programming for a while, because you have that history behind you. And so it would be very important and helpful with new alders coming on, is to get that basic background of information. So that's one point. The second one is that schools are a priority, and if we don't make it a priority, it just gets, for me, it gets lost. It's just like, okay, this is a school, we'll paint it red, but it really does need to be more than that, because in my district, and I keep bringing up Schroeder, is that we have kiddos who are walking down Schroeder, which is a very dangerous street with construction and all of that. They're walking in the wintertime and Anana, they're little ones. I mean, it's an elementary school. And to have that as a priority, as a special look, is critically important. It's important to my constituents, and it's important to where I sit. And so one of the recommendations is that we put this on as an agenda item to really look at school safety. It's more than bike safety. It's school safety, and how the Transportation Commission looks at the school location and what makes traveling, whether it's biking or walking, or how they're navigating, how the kiddos are navigating as a priority. And so I would really like, or request, that would be on a future agenda item, that we can really wrestle with that. And so the Transportation Commission can come out with some strong recommendations that will support the school network as a higher priority. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure. Thanks. Yeah, it's something that, we focus on it often, and it certainly is an item that we hear a lot of prioritization from everybody, actually. Any other comments or questions? So we have a motion on the floor to approve the list of projects contingent on the 2026 budget for Safe Streets Madison being approved. And the revised dollar amount, just to remind everybody, was $301,700. Is that right, Tom?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote unless anybody wishes to vote no, abstain, or wishes a roll call vote. If so, please raise your hand. Okay, the motion is carried. Thanks so much, Tom. Always a lot of great conversations about Safe Streets Madison.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Next we have item 8, which is Pontiac, Boston, Nokomis, and Rosewood reconstruction. Mario, are you going to do that, or Andy, or who's going to?
Yep, that's me. Thank you, Anne.
All right. Thanks, Mario.
All right. Let's get into it. So this is Pontiac Trail. So it is a sort of rural cross section looking to do a full reconstruction on this road, get it up to, have a, curb and gutter. Also, it includes these courts here, Boston Court, Nokomis Court, and Rosewood Circle, these small areas. One thing to note about this area, we're kind of in a small little neighborhood, just off the Beltline, bounded by Midvale and the Southwest Commuter Path. There, specifically this part of the neighborhood, there's only one way in and out by car, walking, or biking, and that is Pontiac Trail at Hammersley and Pontiac Trail at Mohican Pass. This is a very important connection for this neighborhood. As a part of this project, we are looking at a connection through Zook Park to the Southwest Commuter Path. Just so that's on everyone's radar. That is part of the West Dairy Plan, and it is in Parks planning documents. So we're looking at trying to do that as a part of this project, but we're still iterating through the design for that and getting Parks fully on board. But for today, I will be asking for approval of one of the options for the cross-section of Pontiac Trail. So we did a speed study here on Pontiac Trail. I think right now the street is in such bad shape that there isn't much speeding happening. As you can see here, a little more towards the southern end, closer to Hammersley, but I think the street is bad enough that it doesn't happen very often. But once it is completed, we do expect speeding to increase. And so as a part of this project, we are looking at doing some different traffic calming, including chicanes, sort of what, if some of you are here for the Doncaster project, it's the top right that I did. I'll be doing a similar thing to just add more complexity, and it will also help save trees and reduce speeds. Also be looking at tighter curb radii, looking at those complete green streets numbers and making sure we're meeting those. We have some large radii on this street right now. And then we are looking at doing a traffic circle at the intersection of Pontiac and Windigo Trail right here in the middle of the project limits. And I think that is the only sort of four-way, a little bit offset intersection in the project. All right, so a little bit of context on parking on the street. So currently, parking is restricted on mainly the southern portion here. It's only overnight parking, but it's unrestricted towards the north end. However, this street is about 20 to maybe 22 at best feet wide. So folks who are parking are mainly parking on the terrace or, one tire on, one tire off. So as you can see here, I have a lot of folks doing that. but parking utilization is very low. And so looking at this, we did a questionnaire and found that parking is moderately important to folks, not their top concern. But we wanted to drill down on that. And so as a part of our options, we proposed a first option here with 24-foot street width. This would be sort of a yield street. I think our thought with this is that, we'd want to provide that option to folks while having that narrowness. It's not as narrow as it could be, but, and would have a slightly, we have 12 tree removals with this option. I think the main, the street width does drive part of the tree removals, but the sidewalks on both sides do a good portion here. But since this would be a yield street, I think the low parking utilization is important because this is like the only connection in this area. So we do want to make sure that folks can get through. And I think with the low parking utilization, this could work, but that could also reduce the amount of traffic calming that cars are providing when they're parked. So yeah, I did go ahead and look at tree removals by size for this section. And so we have some larger tree removals, but the overall number is relatively low. This is the nearby project that I did last year, similar size project in terms of length of street. And our analysis of that project at that time was that if we did sidewalks on both sides, there'd be 55 removals, whereas this one would only be 12. And then we looked at an option 2 as well, just eliminating parking completely. Now we are including with this option parking by the park that's in the middle of the project, and it required 26-foot by fire width by Hammersley, which there's an apartment building there that was recently built that we need to maintain that, but the rest of the street would be 22 feet. How did we get to this 22-foot number? Well, so we looked at so the minimum width of the travel way for a neighborhood street is 18 feet. And that is kind of where we arrived at this 22-foot number. My friends in traffic engineering thought that the 16-foot minimum for a yield street wasn't really applicable if you don't have parking there. It sort of doesn't quite make as much sense. Folks that will have trouble backing out of their driveways, among other issues. And so I think a minimum street width, and this is a recommendation, that we do need, I think on complete green streets, a true street width minimum, considering streets where we may not want to include parking. And that's something the guide kind of assumes that you're going to have parking when it talks about its street width minimums. So that's something to look at. But for this one, we do have fewer tree removals. I did adjust both of these numbers since the PIM, by the way, in case anyone's listening who saw the PIM, found a couple that, were missed, a couple trees that were missed in the first pass. But again, this would remove 7 trees, and these are sort of medium-sized trees. All right, so let's look at what the public thinks about these options. So, for option 1, we have, I think for both options, we had a similar amount that did not support. And the difference with this option is we had more support than can live with. And in option 2, we had more can live with than support. And so looking at that, and given that it's roughly the same amount that don't support, I think we're going to recommend to go with option 1 based on that. I know there was also a third option that was proposed. Let's see, what slide do I have next here? Oh, and we also looked at where are these responses coming from in the neighborhood. So This is kind of a plot of that. And you can see in these pie charts a little better the support, the can in blue, the can live with in yellow, and the do not support in red. And so that gives a little bit better option. There's also a third option that was proposed, I think, in some notes to the Transportation Commission that I want to address. And that had sidewalks on both sides on Pontiac Trail up to One-Way Pass, and then sidewalk on the west side up until Mohican Pass. This option, we've looked at it, it will save 4 trees and a couple more that could have been in danger. And it does not provide the full facility that we usually want to see here. I think that it's, considering that we've done sidewalk on one side with, the threat of large tree removals, massive amounts of trees being removed before, 4 trees does not seem like it would justify that from our perspective. And that is, I think, it for me. And I will turn it back to the commission.
Thanks. We do have some folks registered to speak, I believe. So we'll go to the public first, and then we'll go to comments and questions. We do have people registered to speak. Is that correct, Aiden?
Yes, that is correct. So first we have Alan Shackelford of Pontiac Trail opposes and wishes to speak.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
We can, thanks.
Okay, great. Yeah, my name's Al Shackelford. I live at 909 Pontiac Trail, which is the very first house on Pontiac Trail. And one thing I wanted to, I have a question for the Transportation Commission, and then I have a couple comments. But my question is, I'm just curious to know of I think there are 6 members of the Transportation Commission here tonight. Is that right?
There's actually 9 here.
Okay, 9 here. I would like to know, could we just go around from one member to another? I would just like to know how many of the members of the Transportation Commission have driven down Pontiac Trail.
We can certainly discuss that if Transportation Commission members wish to, but this is really your opportunity to make your comments and not really to question the commission. So
okay.
Why don't you go ahead and make your comments, sir?
Okay. Well, I just wanted to, I think we have a very unique and wonderful little neighborhood here that we all really love. And I think it's, until you kind of drive down Pontiac Trail or walk it, whatever, if you do that, you fully realize kind of the charm of the neighborhood. And I think a majority of the people who live on Pontiac Trail do not support either option 1 or option 2. And even greater majority do not support the idea of 2 sidewalks, a sidewalk on each side of Pontiac Trail. Because, it's hard to imagine going from an asphalt street that's like 18 or 20 feet wide and going to something that's like basically almost 40 foot wide of concrete. If you consider a 24 foot wide street and then sidewalks on each side of that street, it's hard to imagine what this neighborhood is going to look like when that kind of a road reconstruction project is completed. So, and Mario mentioned that one of my neighbors, Lane Larson, has come up with a plan that has sidewalks on most of Pontiac Trail, has a sidewalk on only one side of the street, on the west side of the street. And I think that option number 3 would have much greater support in the neighborhood, because that's the one that has the best chance of improving the road like we need to do, but also maintaining the character and the charm of the neighborhood. So I hope that, I think the wishes of the people in the neighborhood should be a very important consideration here. And I don't think option 1 or 2 is really what the majority of the people in the neighborhood want. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for coming and making your comments. Does anybody have a question for the registrant? Okay, I'm seeing no hands. Thank you for coming. Who else do we have, Aiden?
So next we have Lane Larson of Chieftain Lookout, opposes and wishes to speak.
Hello, thank you. My name is Lane Larson, and I've been a resident of Summit Woods for 25 years. I'm also the author of Option 3, a design proposal that offers a balanced, sustainable, and cost-effective alternative for this project. Option 3, as Mario had mentioned, was not considered until just now. And also, this is Summit Woods neighborhood. So this option was created based on comments from an in-person Summit Woods neighborhood meeting at the library, conversations with neighbors, researching Madison Green Street's information, and the experience of walking, biking, and driving on Pontiac Trail thousands of times. I walk along Pontiac Trail almost every evening. While I have other route options, I consistently choose this path because it's peaceful, scenic, and simply just part of the character of our neighborhood. Adding a single side to one side of the north segment would make this trail infinitely safer for pedestrians like me without compromising its natural beauty or its accessibility. Option 3 includes, and if you wouldn't mind bringing up my comments on the screenshot so people could follow.
I don't know if anybody has them handy or not, but they.
I mean, they're in the public comments in the Legistar file.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Do we want to bring it up?
If somebody has it handy, you can.
Okay. Give me 1 second.
Can you pause my time currently?
Yeah, can you pause his time for a minute, Aiden?
I mean, I can keep talking if you would.
Sure,
like.
go ahead.
So I just got an email before this meeting from Denise Juss, Executive Director of Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Visually Impaired. I asked her about the single side sidewalk versus having sidewalks on both sides, and this is what she responded. I appreciated you thinking about placement of sidewalk on one side of the street. In a perfect world, sidewalk on both sides would be the best course of action. But given the trees and the terrains, I understand the concerns. From a blind, low vision perspective, having a consistent and ADA compliant pathway that consistently runs on one side of the street and is predictable is better than something that is meandering and confusing. That is from Denise Juss, Executive Director of the Wisconsin Council of the Blind and Impaired. So option 3 is sidewalks on both sides in the south segment where residential density is higher. That just makes sense. A sidewalk on the west side in the middle and north segments to protect green space and mature trees. That also makes sense. Available crossings at Onaway Pass and Mohican Pass for safe pedestrian movement also makes sense. While sidewalks on both sides may seem ideal, they come with significant environmental trade-offs. Options 1 and 2 include much more impervious surface, less room for greenery, and greater disruption to the tree canopy, not to mention ignoring Green Streets Guide page 8, right-sized streets that are not overbuilt. This includes sidewalks on both sides of the sidewalk where they're not necessarily needed. Option 3 avoids these issues by consolidating infrastructure where it makes the most sense. The west side, which already has sidewalk segments, fewer trees, and borders Zook Park. Option 3 is the only proposal that truly balances accessibility, environmental responsibility, and community input. I urge the Commission to give it serious consideration and continue investing in infrastructure that reflects Summit Woods and the Madison's commitment to a government that listens to its residents. Thank you for your time and dedication, and I urge you to consider this option 3. Let's build a trail, Pontiac Trail, that reflects the best of Madison and one that remains connected to our neighborhoods, which is named Summit Woods. Thank you.
Thank you for coming and for your input and your feedback. Does anybody have a comment or question for the registrant?
I just have a comment. I looked in the questionnaire results, and 25 people out of approximately 70 respondents wrote that they would like sidewalk on one side in the comments. That's one thing to note.
Okay, thanks. Other comments or questions from the commission and the alders, not from the registrants. You have your 3 minutes to speak. So I'm looking for comments or questions from the Transportation Commission and any other alders who are here this evening. Okay, thank you very much for coming, Lane. Who else do we have, Aiden?
Last was Nelson Holmberg of Pontiac Trail. Neither supports nor opposes and wishes to speak, but I'm not sure if they're present right now.
Chair, I don't see Nelson in attendance currently.
Nelson, if you are, can you raise your hand? Sometimes those names don't always quite reflect who's there. I don't see any hand going up. Nelson, are you there? So please raise your hand. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone either. It doesn't sound like you are either, Ariana or Aiden. Okay, if you see Nelson pop in there, Ariana, could you let us know, please?
Yes, I will.
Okay, comments or questions for staff? Alder Okovich, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. One thing that stuck out to me from what the speaker was saying when they were reading Denise's letter, the sidewalks for both option 1 and option 2 would be ADA compliant, correct?
That is correct. They would be necessarily ADA compliant.
Okay. Would they meander at all? I mean, you're talking about
they would meander, I think, more on the sort of east side than the west. That's just to, and I did get a comment from our PIM that I took seriously, which was they meandered a little too much in the initial sort of presentation that I showed, which I think you can kind of see it here. He pasted this on top of, I think, option 1. You can kind of see it meander a bit. Yeah. I was, prioritizing staying away from trees and trying to stick to some standards. And I think I can just smooth it out a little bit more, but it will meander a bit, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, Alder. This is Andy Zwig. I'm helping Mario on the project too. We do have other projects like this that we do some meandering, of the sidewalk, to avoid trees. And I think as Mario goes into full design, over the next couple months, he'll continue to refine that sidewalk location on either side as he just gets more and more into the details of the engineering.
And then I guess my last question, do you know how much terrace space there is for trees right now?
All right. Yeah, well, right now it is just a street, just about 22 feet wide with nothing except driveways. So there's a lot, I mean, there's quite a bit of space right now. And there's some ditches too. We'd be getting rid of those. But yeah, I think in terms of planting space, we'd try to maximize as much as possible. I think there's some spots where there could be tree plantings, if that's you were asking.
If you have a 60-foot right of way, 22-foot street, we got about, we'll just call it 20 feet, a little less than that on each side. That's, right of way availability for, street improvements.
Yeah. And I think the prioritization of trees is reflected in the 13-foot terrace space, which seems pretty large.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Mario, maybe you want to go back to your presentation so you can show some of that option 1 or 2.
I do want to clarify that I'm sort of, looking at the terrace space here. I mean, that's sort of a placeholder because it does vary. I think for a lot of the project, the sidewalk will be pretty close to the street. And so we'll be looking behind the sidewalk to have space for trees. But there will be spots where it looks kind of like the right side where there's space between the sidewalk and the street.
And we'll continue to work with forestry all the way through the design process. It's what we typically do, and forestry is involved in the construction when they start to build this infrastructure around the trees. And I think there'll be sections where Mario will narrow to 22 to avoid trees, or we'll call them tree curb extensions, where we'll just narrow the street there to, avoid, trees as well.
Okay. And forestry has already looked at the trees that you'd be removing, and they're okay with that?
Yeah, and they've shown me sort of their priorities as well, which there's a power line on the west side of the street, so those trees are less priority for them. Of course, we still want canopy there, so they're still priority for us, but that's kind of how the conversation goes. But and some of them have been removed for condition already. So.
Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Solder, Harold, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Mario. I got lost with the Yield Street discussion between option 1 and option 2, I think. Can you try explaining this again? Like why we have, with parking, without parking, and how that impacts the street width. And this is classified as a neighborhood yield street in the complete Green Streets guide. That's my first question.
So it's unclassified. So these streets are below a certain level, they're unclassified. So we're kind of looking at this as, a neighborhood yield street with option 1, or I guess a little more of a neighborhood street with option 2. So option 1 would have that parking on one side with the 16-foot space when the car is parked there. So that becomes a yield street. Then option 2 would have just that 22-foot width with no parking, except where we have a bump out for parking at Zook Park and at the south end of the street.
And do you have a prediction which of these is going to lead to safer speeds more?
Yeah, that's a question that we've been kind of thinking about internally. It's, normally with a yield street, you'd expect a little bit better speeds, but if it's not parked up, then it could be a little bit worse. But it's also only a couple feet different. So
Yeah.
maybe someone from traffic engineering or Andy can add something to that.
Yeah, I mean, with Mara's got a traffic circle, and at the intersections, we'll definitely go to 22 because we can't park there anyway. So those spots, will definitely slow traffic down, whether you're at the 22 or at the 24. So that's why if there's a 24, it'll tighten up when we get to the intersections.
Can you explain this, like that note on like true street width minimum needed thing again?
Yeah, so there's so the minimum street width in complete green streets is 24 feet, just straight up for a yield street, which is the narrowest one. But in this, we're finding that if you want to just have, if you don't want to have parking, then perhaps 22 or maybe narrower is appropriate if you don't have parking. And so complete green streets needs to reflect streets that don't have parking on them. Would be my recommendation.
And these dimensions are face to face.
Correct.
So it's actually, the pavement is 4 feet less. So it's 18 feet and 20 feet of pavement, if that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. So complete green streets currently says neighborhood yield street needs to be 24 with the assumption there needs to, if there's parking, then yeah, that makes some sense. But if there's no parking, then yeah, it becomes a question. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So we're operating a little outside the guide a bit. You're using it to inform this, but it's not quite clear.
Yeah, okay. I think I understand this now. Thought I had one more thing, but I can't remember, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, Harold, we can always come back. Robbie, go ahead.
Thank you. So I just wanted to clarify a couple things. For the tree sizes, are those diameter or circumference?
Oh, yeah, that's diameter.
Okay, so those large trees, 30-inch diameter, that's a pretty good sized tree.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay. And what's the traffic volume on this street?
I think I think you had it on the speed study, didn't you? Yeah, it was like 300 or something.
Okay.
Yep. So yeah, one direction was, just under 350 and sorry. So yeah, Pontiac from Onaway to Hammersley was 350, and then it kind of drops off north of Onaway to just over 200.
Yeah, I guess I'm sort of wondering whether having no parking on the street would encourage people to speed because the traffic volume is so low. But at the same time, I guess you did the counts for the parking during the day or in the evening?
We did a variety. So we did early morning, midday, and then evening.
Okay.
And on a weekend day as well.
Okay.
Which weekend showed no parking.
Sorry?
So yeah, on the weekend day, there was no parking. So it seemed like people were parked more during the week.
Yeah, I mean, I just took a look at, Google Street View, which seems to be relatively recent. And there were even fewer cars than in your study, but some of them appeared to be people working on houses. Like people had pulled out of their driveway and parked on the street so that some construction guy could park in their driveway, or there was a pickup truck with construction stuff parked on the street. So I guess I'm just sort of wondering what the parking need is here. At least one comment that was sent to us said, we don't really need parking because we all have a ton of off-street parking. I could certainly see people maybe wanting to park near the park. But you know, you both options have that available. And I guess I'm sort of wondering whether both options are going to lead to speeding because it's going to be so wide. It sounds like both options are actually wider than the current road, right? The pavement is only 18 feet wide now. Is that right?
Well, the pavement's like 20 feet there's no curb out there. So we would pretty much just be adding, with the 24 foot, we'd be adding curb to either side of basically what the width it is now. So technically wider. And then with the 22 foot, we'd just be adding 2 feet instead of 4.
Okay. I guess I just do have to say that I am a little concerned about the loss of some of those large trees. So in some ways I would favor the narrower option. Just to save some of those trees, because some of those are pretty good size.
And Robbie, I think that I foresee this going as kind of like both options, where all of your intersections are 22 because we can't park there anyway. And then where we have those large mature trees or any tree that forestry feels a curb extent, a 22-foot street there. And that maybe it's mid-block goes to 22 to save that tree is certainly something that we would do. So that is something we would do. Robbie, I would not foresee it being 24 throughout. I would do narrow the street where we got those trees.
Okay, so the count that you gave the 24-foot wide street for tree loss is not correct?
Can you go back to that slide, Mario?
I don't think I don't know if Mario's gone to quite that level of detail, but maybe he has.
Approximately.
So yeah,
six trees between 15 and 30 inch diameter.
Yeah.
Those are pretty good sized trees.
They are. They are pretty good sized trees. There's a couple in there that I think I could maybe not remove. These are both conservative estimates. But because you never know what's going to happen when you get into the nitty gritty of design. And so, yeah, I can do some bump outs to try to save some trees, but there may have been, one that, the grades don't actually work for that one. So we've got to remove this one. And so these are estimates based on that. And I think the bumping out will have limited effect. I think we could, with a lot of bump outs, we could maybe get down to what option 2 has, but it'd be really tricky. So I wouldn't want to promise that.
And then my other question, I guess, I know that in some cases construction ends up losing trees anyway because it damages the roots or there's not enough space. So, I'm sort of leaning towards the narrower road anyway. And I'm wondering if we really need, if we have options for maybe providing a little bit of parking in some areas where you don't have so many potential tree removals. Even with the narrower street, that's not a lot of cars going through there. So, I think people can probably share the road. I mean, if it's a true yield street, it would be, I think, people would probably be sharing it with pedestrians and bicyclists and parked cars and driving cars at the same time. So even though that's not what we call it in our manual. So I guess I'm just wondering if there's ways to provide a little bit of parking and at the same time not remove those large trees. So those are my questions.
Yeah, and I think that's what Andy was getting at with we could do extended bump outs in tight spaces to 22. It just sort of limited in where we can do that. We'd have to, at a certain point, if you do that, then then you'd start to have just parking pockets, which we could, I think, just where would those be, and is there demand in those spots? That'd be something we'd have to look at.
Yeah, I think engineering's open to, if you selected option 1, then we would narrow the street at the intersections or have a traffic circle, and then at the trees. And we could go narrower than 22 at the trees if we needed to. If we absolutely needed to, we could go a little narrower. Or the other options, the committee could go option 2, and then just, hey, try to fit some parking. Where I kind of look at those as very similar. But I think we'd be good with that one. What I didn't want is to have option 2 be selected with no option for us to put besides the park, because we're going to have parking there regardless. Any other, I don't want option 2 to limit us to only parking around the park. It would be open to doing parking pockets elsewhere where we wouldn't have, tree lots. And we're only
where residents request, right? That's the difference.
And this is not some giant 8-foot parking pocket. This is a 2-foot addition to the street where we wouldn't. We would just go to 24 from 22, so we wouldn't be doing any significant, change at that location of full parking. So that, I guess that's kind of my thoughts on it. I think we have, 2 good options here, and then Mario's got to really work out the details of, over the next couple of months with the engineering.
Okay, sounds like there's a lot still to be worked out, depending on, the 2 options seem to be getting closer and closer together. The more we talk.
Yep, and that's been typical with some of these rural to urbans that we're seeing as we kind of go through the process with the committees and the public feedback, and we get more and more into the details of things. That's kind of what we're seeing.
Yeah, but the default from which I start in the design does matter, because that will be the majority of the street. Like we could do bump outs around the trees, or maybe if residents ask for them, we can do parking pockets with option 2. It wouldn't be we just throw them in willy-nilly where we have space, because we also want terrace with option 2. We also want more terrace space for street trees. Yeah, that's one of the benefits of option 2 as well. Just a couple more feet for those. So yeah, it does matter, I think, which one is chosen.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Robbie. Harold, go ahead.
Thank you. In the spirit of getting the options ever more similar to each other, why do you need a wider street when there's on-street parking? Is that under the assumption, like if you suddenly have a lot of on-street parking, then the remaining 16 feet are not enough? Because you'd think 2 cars traveling past each other need more space than a parked car, which usually is parked all the way to the curb, so you can get those 2 feet. And then you have 16 feet remaining where supposedly you're yielding to each other. So why, can you explain that for me?
Yeah, that goes back to that minimum in Bleak Green Streets for the yield street. It's 24 feet, and that is what I think T wanted us to stick with on this one. I don't know if Sean or Allie, you want to clarify a little more?
Yeah, so the guide has a yield. Yeah, this is where it gets a little confusing, that the neighborhood street's actually narrower. So for it to be a yield street, there has to be parking because you have to yield to something. So with the guide, the lowest that we have, and the minimum is 24 feet, with parking on one side. At least that's our interpretation of it. And then a neighborhood street, the minimum travelway width is 18 feet. And so that's what we have. So we have the minimum for both, I think, in these options here, at least by our interpretation of the guide.
Okay. I feel like this is something that we should look at a larger level. Does that make sense? Because right now I feel like kind of makes sense, but it's weird that as you said, the yield street is wider than the neighborhood street. That doesn't seem, I mean, we have the guide as it is right now, so I guess we should mostly stick to it, but I think this is something worth looking into.
Yeah, it would be if you did a 20, if you wanted parking on a 22-foot street, even parking on 24, we would hear feedback from the neighbors that it'd be tough to pull out of their driveway. So, with the car parked. So I guess that is why, my thought on, why the 24 would be wider. And
that is feedback we've gotten on.
We get that feedback pretty significantly. We've made some engineering changes to some of the driveway aprons on some of these 24-foot streets based on that feedback.
Because the standard where you can't park within X feet of a driveway doesn't work if the street is too narrow. Is that what you're saying?
It's what's behind. It's like if you're backing up and it's on the other side of the street, it's narrow to get your car to turn. And, we've had issues on some other streets that recently redone that, we had to remove parking to allow people to back up. Then people on the other street were upset because they lost the parking in front of their house. It's been we've had a little challenge with it, but I mean, the product is a narrower street. So, there is definitely some give and take.
Yeah, in some cases we've gone to 4-foot flare. So a driveway typically is a residential driveway is a 2-foot flare. We've gone to 4-foot on some of these really tight streets, depending on kind of the driveway location where the parking ends up being, just to give those people an extra 2 feet to take a tighter angle into their street or driveway.
Okay, that's fascinating. Yeah, I mean, I guess what you probably would do on a street like this where parking demand is pretty low, you would probably mark individual spots, where you look at where the driveway is located, where would a car not be in the way, and then you tell people, here it's where you can park, the rest of the street you can't park, or something like that. All right. Well, learned a lot. Thank you. This was helpful.
Thanks, Harold. Alder Figueroa-Cole, go ahead.
Thank you. Great discussion. So I do want to kind of address ask you to help me address the elephant in the room regarding the sidewalks in both sides of the street. Can you please cover how the policy, what are the policy rules on that, and what are the options here of, if there are any, for to deal with the one side of the sidewalk the sidewalk instead of both sides of the street. We have the PIMs, and again, we try to explain the policy and how this commission put this policy together. So can you please help us? Can you elaborate on that aspect of the policy, please?
Yeah. So the primary reason to have sidewalks on both sides, first looking at the guide with both neighborhood street and neighborhood yield street. I might have it actually pulled up. The walk zone is a high priority, and that that means having sidewalk on both sides. Equally, it says standard sidewalks, and that means sidewalk on both sides traditionally, unless there's a huge reason to not do it. In this case, we do have some tree impacts that are not insignificant, but they're not overwhelming as they have been on other projects where we've done sidewalk on one side, such as Doncaster, Beverly Danbury, where it was extremely constrained. There were massive trees, truly much larger, close to the street, where we did do sidewalk on one side. And then a more recent one, Davidson Maher, where there were even more significant tree impacts with sidewalk on both sides. And that was significantly reduced with sidewalk on one side. In this case, it's just the scale of the tree removals is so much lower, and I was actually surprised when I started looking into it. And so that's really the key here, is where we create an exception to this high priority. It also generally we try to avoid it because folks have to plow these and maintain these sidewalks, and doing it on one side versus the other kind of burdens those residents versus the folks on the other side. And that's something that we hear a lot when we propose sidewalk on one side. That is our
I understand that last argument doesn't, like, to me, it's not, I'd rather we still focus on access for all ages and abilities, not about, who gets the preferential about the sidewalk. But then I heard Robbie putting concerns about the size of the trees and try to save them based on the width of the road. And I'm just wondering if there's then, how is that then decided that we protect the trees based on the configuration of the road instead of space with the side, instead of incorporating the sidewalk design some different way? That's what I'm trying to kind of align the tree discussion here with the feedback that we have gotten so far.
Yeah, well, I think I did look at what would happen if we did the option proposed by the neighborhood. And, I did look at the tree removals. I didn't write these down, but they are 4 removals that would be saved. And then possibly, being generous, a few trees that could be threatened that wouldn't be. And yeah, just some stats here: 73 total street trees on this project. And then, as I mentioned before, the 25 residents that indicated support for sidewalk. This I just whipped up today after seeing that option. So that if that provides some more context, that's hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, I do want to acknowledge that people did respond for yes for sidewalks on both sides. So, but again, it has been the topic of contention on this particular project, and I just want the commission to help address those concerns and how the decision making happens. Because as we discussed before, it's not, and this has been my feedback to the people that have provided the feedback. This is a policy that the council approved, so my role has been trying to educate people on the policy, but it's not staff. Staff is not the one making the policy decisions. It was this commission, and then the council approved it. So I just really want if there's any other feedback from the board about that, I appreciate it. But at the same time, listening to addressing the tree concerns by reducing the side of the road. I'm just trying to understand how that gets, how do we land there?
Yeah.
Versus the sidewalk.
I think what the alder is getting at, and it's actually very important, is that while I'm saying yes, the scale of the tree removal is much lower, and that's why we're not proposing sidewalk on one side, but there is no established threshold for that. So that is something that we maybe should look at.
And then to follow up in something that Robbie also said about there's more, seems like that we need, it feels like there's more work to be done, but I'm not quite sure what that means. I mean, does that mean that you come back to the commission for another look at options, or what is the expectation on this from this meeting to, like this has been a lot of questions from the commission, so I'm trying to understand what is the next step after the discussion.
Yep. So at this, we were looking for a recommendation from the commission. We would take that recommendation, and the next step would be Mario, continues to move forward with some design, but he also prepares the assessments for the Public Works Board of Public Works hearing and council hearing. Those are the next steps. We typically don't get too significant design when we have options sitting out there, just so we don't have to go back and start over with the work with on the computer models. But yeah, the next step would be moving forward with the commission's recommendation and then taking that to the board for that public hearing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Pepe, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. And thank you, staff, for all the work put here. Personally, I'm having trouble, kind of finding a preference between the two options. It's just a little bit troublesome for me because I see just so many similarities. I guess my head is kind of going to where some of the questions that Harold was asking of, like, in your opinion, what would be the one that would be the safest? What would be the one design that would lead to less speeding? Although I was just looking at the map, and I don't see Pontiac Trail as being like a place where people would probably speed to, bypass a certain other traffic section. Still, my head kind of goes around the idea of like, what can we do to make sure this continues to have the walkability and the safety vibe that the neighbors were sharing, the ones that were sharing, in terms of if you walk down there, if you drive or bike, you get that feeling of being at ease. All that being said, my head was also going to where Alder Figueroa was going in terms of timeline. And I guess the question I have is, if we were to consider option 3, or if we had to do something different than option 1 or 2, how would that impact your current timeline, and how would that look like?
Well, I think if there was another option proposed here, it could be approved either this meeting or in a future meeting. And at that point, I would move forward with the design. Now, I think it would impact our timetable if it were to push to a further meeting. I think what is the next TC meeting is on the
19th, or on November 5th.
Okay. That would probably not give us, that would probably push assessments into another cycle. But I do think that we'd still be out to bid in this, early spring, at least by then. I think the schedule would still work to build it next year, if we were to push it one more. Andy, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I think we're probably tight right now based on the current schedule to potentially start and finish the project. This year we don't have to install water main, but we do have some sanitary and storm work. So there's not full underground, but there's some. Construction may have to be split between 2026 and 2027. If we, have to, continue just kind of talking about, alternatives that the street would need. I would, if the commission would want us to come back, I would be interested in all guidance on what the commission would be looking for. We didn't present sidewalk on one side just because from an engineering standpoint, it fits. And there is tree loss before she doesn't consider it significant. But we take trees very serious. So I understand that, a dozen trees or less, it's depending on who you talk to, could be significant. So we do take that very serious. But I guess I would be interested on kind of what the commission would want us to do, whether it be, put out another questionnaire to the neighborhood, or I guess I'm open to, further discussion on that. But
I don't think we're at any point where we have a motion at this point. People seem to be throwing around a lot of different options at this point, Andy, but I think you're asking that if wherever we land, you want to just have firm guidance from TC. Is that right?
Yeah. We're open to, all the suggestions. I mean, we're at a good point where we can still, make changes and move forward. We went guides because we want to keep the project moving forward. There's a significant amount of work that Mario needs to do to get this to bid yet. Yep.
Right. Yeah, and I appreciate those thoughts from both you and Andy and Mario. And I think I heard you both of you mention at some point in the maybe answering to Robbie that there is room for creativity here in terms of if we were to go with option 2, like there's an option 2 that you guys could look deeper into what areas could address parking anyway, or the use of bump outs, or I'm just thinking, I'm not saying that the commission would recommend that, but necessarily, but I'm saying, I mean, that sounds good to me. Like if there's actually room for grabbing option 2 and making it more, and apply creativity there and save trees and make it, and make sure that we're applying all the tools that we have in hand to make sure this is the safest street that we can provide, then I would love to see that.
Thanks, Pepe. Is that all you have then?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Harold, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I want to respond to the very good question that Alder Figueroa posed about, like, what is the policy? How do we determine when we deviate from the policy? Because, it's something that we as the Transportation Commission grapple with, that I have the pleasure of usually grappling with twice, once at TC and once it is at Board of Public Works, which is also often very interesting because you don't always have the same people the same residents showing up and with the same opinions at both those meetings. And so, I didn't write the policy. I'm tasked with interpreting it. I think a couple points that when this topic of like no sidewalks, which is often also what people ask for, like why do we even need any sidewalks, or one sidewalk or two sidewalks? I think what I'd like to point out is that Madison, compared to most other US cities, has a really outstanding safety record for pedestrian safety. We still fortunately have pedestrian fatalities, and we have Vision Zero. We want to get that down to 0, but we are vastly better than other municipalities. And I think one of the reasons for that is that we also have a very complete sidewalk network compared to other places. I travel around the region a lot, Pittsburgh, Verona, Sun Prairie, and when I bike on these residential streets, I can always tell if I'm in Madison or if I cross over into Fitchburg or Sun Prairie, because suddenly the sidewalks disappear. So we have this immense asset that we built by presumably having this policy in place for a really long time, because if you don't build a sidewalk initially, it becomes very difficult to add it later. And I think that leads to the other piece of this, like decisions that we make now have an impact for the next 30 to 50 years. If we don't build a sidewalk now, we're probably not going to build it while many of us are still alive even. So I think it's always important, and maybe in this case it's less important, but if people say like, there's one person who really needs the parking in front of their house right now, and that's why we can't have a sidewalk, I think that's where it's more important to take this longer term perspective. And yeah, I mean, I think the other thing, and I think I heard Director Spieler say that in an event during the week without driving, like this concept of pedestrian dignity, where if you're moving around the city walking or rolling, often you don't feel dignified, and having sidewalks on both streets is like one of those minimum standards that we have to create that pedestrian environment where you do feel like, yeah, I'm welcome here. I feel safe here. And we have standards for roads, as we have just discussed. We know like they have to be 24 feet wide. They have to be paved. We're not discussing like, well, maybe this should be a gravel road. Maybe it would be better for the trees if this were a gravel road. But that never comes up for question. And so I think the sidewalk policy, at least for me, is one of those things where we said like, yeah, we need sidewalks on our streets and we need them on both sides. And yeah, I mean, every rule has exceptions, but I think for me, those reasons for those exceptions need to be pretty strong. So that's all I have on this. Thank you.
Thanks, Harold. Alder Martinez Rutherford, go ahead.
Thank you so much. I sit in the space where we've recently approved sidewalks for areas and neighborhoods that have vehemently opposed them because of policy, and putting us in a space of changing that frequently makes me feel very uncomfortable. I think the policy seems pretty clear, and there seems to be a pretty large support for one of the options more than the other. And I would feel a lot more comfortable if we stuck to that policy, and with the questionnaires that we've already gotten, I feel like it's clear enough to support one over the other. And that's kind of where I'm sitting right now. And I appreciate the conversation, and I know that there's contention over sidewalks in a lot of places, and the importance of that to me outweighs, especially when we have a clear understanding of what the majority of the residents have approved or support or can live with. So thank you. That's my little comment.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Okovich, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I want to thank everyone for the discussion. Was doing a deep dive into Green Streets to see if we talk about exceptions for sidewalks, and there's only two places I can find that talk about exceptions, and one of them is specifically on a parkway, because it's a very wide road and primarily park space, and the other one is the Yield Street, but it's only in constrained circumstances, and it specifically references like courtyards or the end of streets. And so it feels like there really is not an exception for trees, and Complete Green Streets was definitely designed with trees in mind. I don't really feel comfortable only putting sidewalks on one side, especially for a small number of tree removals that forestry is okay with. It just doesn't feel right. I think trees are very important. We recently passed a tree protection ordinance at Common Council to help protect our street trees, but trees also can't be a reason for not making things better. Like Harold was saying, if we don't do this now, it's not going to happen for 30 or 50 years. And there's going to be literally generations of people living on this street and living in the city that, we need to be thinking about. It's not just about what's there right now. So to the people who are commenting, I think we hear you and we're listening, but that doesn't necessarily mean we agree. So thank you.
Thanks, Alder. Pepe, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I definitely I align with all the last colleagues that have talked about the idea of sticking with policy. So personally, I'm gonna set that aside and just assuming that we go for sidewalks on both sides and try to focus on what street feels the safest. As a pedestrian myself, bike rider and driver, I have personally, and the feedback that I've got from neighbors and other people I know is that in general, when there are parked cars, there is a feeling that you need to go slower, especially if it's a tighter road. So I personally feel more inclined towards option one. If not correct, is Mario, is that option one the one that has parked cars, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, the yield option, I personally feel that it would be a more appropriate for this case. I know that the opposing thoughts to that is that the parking study didn't show that many people parking anyway. But still, I mean, I don't, in my opinion, I don't see the problem with having that parking available there. And if it's utilized, it will potentially affect that feeling of like feeling the road narrower and going slower. So that's kind of where my thoughts are going to. And I appreciate that everybody just before me were talking about the importance of following policy, because I totally agree with that. I mean, we're here to make the long-term decisions, so I'm all in with sidewalks on both sides. Thank you.
Thanks, Pepe. Alder Martinez Rutherford, go ahead.
Would a motion for approval of option one be in order?
Sure.
Okay. I would like to move approval of option one.
Okay, there's a motion by Alder Martinez Rutherford to approve option one. Is there a second?
I second.
Pepe? Okay, there's a second. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Alder?
I think I said everything I needed to say before.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, discussion. Pepe? No? Okay, Harold?
Thank you. Yeah, maybe this is more question to the Alder making the motion. I guess based on what you did say previously, I think what you're suggesting, staff asked us for like, give us something to work with, but we will work with it and possibly make changes as we go along. Is that the spirit of your motion?
Absolutely. If there are any ways they wish to improve it throughout the process, I think that's appropriate and acceptable, especially given that the policy, as long as we follow that policy, and this one seems to have broad support and or the higher likelihood that people can live with it. So that's why I would choose this option.
Thank you for confirming that.
Certainly.
Thanks, Harold. Alder Okovich, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the Alder is right. I think I do slightly prefer option two, just because of how underparked the street is, and it would essentially saves more trees and it keeps things closer to the same. But I'm one of the people who's going to vote on this motion. My guidance to staff would be, like has been discussed, a hybrid of option one and option two with narrower streets when appropriate and parking pockets where they can be fit in.
Thanks, Alder. Alder Figueroa Cole, go ahead.
I mean, to continue with that hybrid mode that Will was just talking. And again, and to incorporate Robbie's comments about the 30 diameter tree saving possibilities. I mean, I don't know if they need to be part of the motion, but I think that I just don't want to get those concepts lost on the task for staff to try to save, especially those big trees, as best as possible by reducing the making reductions or removing parking.
Was that a question?
Is that part of the motion? Does it have to be part of the motion, or is that staff is going to take all that stuff into consideration by the basic motion that it was made?
Andy and Mario, can I ask you to comment, because my understanding, and let me see if this answers people's questions. My understanding of the process is that you're conservative in what you say relative to which trees might be removed. And your goal is to, as you further your design, to do what you can to minimize the amount of trees that are removed. Would that be correct?
That's correct. And I think the main thing we're looking at is what's my default. If option one is chosen, it would be no parking pockets. It would be, can we put a tree bump out somewhere and eliminate parking in that section? Versus if we did, 22 foot if a resident, or option two, if a resident requested a parking bump out, then we could take a look at that and try to place it. That's kind of what we're looking at. So what's the default? And maybe there's some spots where you can find an exception. So I hope that helps.
And will you be prioritizing the bigger trees though?
Yes, and I think the 30-inch one, I might be able to. There's only one 30-inch one, and I think I might be able to. I might be able to save that one potentially.
Yeah, Alder Figueroa Cole. We will definitely prioritize. Looking at either whatever is recommended to try to minimize the amount of trees we want removed, and we certainly work hard at it so we don't have to have any surprise removals during construction. Mm-hmm. So Mario will take this recommendation, make some tweaks in the computer model, and go back and talk to forestry again. And then probably have another discussion with forestry when the design is complete.
Thank you.
Alder Martinez Rutherford, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if you need me to amend any of the movement so that we can make sure that everything that we've just discussed is included.
So are you suggesting that we say motion to approve option one with staff trying to minimize the amount of trees removed? Does that cover it?
Is that to Andy and Mario?
I mean, you can go that route. I mean, personally, we're gonna do that anyway. I love my job and I like to work here. So saying that I'm going to do something and not doing it is not something that I want to do. We're going to do that, whether you include that part in your motion or not. If it makes the commission,
it adds weight.
Yep, adds weight, and it's in the record. Certainly, that is fine. That is fine with us.
So, Andy, you're saying that's part of your normal process, that you're conservative and say we may have to remove this many trees. But even though you tell us that, you always try and reduce the number of trees you have to remove when you go into the final design. Would that be right?
Correct. But you typically like to have the tree removals nailed down by the board meeting, because that's when we kind of officially notify people via mail about tree removals, and that we have to do that for ordinance. If we came up with additional tree removals after the board or council, we would just have to send a separate letter to those residents about the tree removals. We'll also notify them as far as our construction mailing too. So we try to do it relatively soon. And it's in these rural to urban, sometimes they come up after the board meetings. But to answer your question, yes, it is part of our typical process.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So before I go to you, Alder Figueroa Cole, Alder Martinez Rutherford, did you want to just leave your motion as the motion to approve option one, or did you feel like we needed to refine that motion?
I mean, it sounds like I don't need to refine it because they will be diligent in saving trees and making sure that everything is appropriate. So I would keep the motion the same.
Thank you. Alder Figueroa-Cole, go ahead.
This is a general question. I'm sorry that I don't have the actual, answer. So in general, like there are actual neighborhoods in my district that do want sidewalks, especially the ones close to schools, but we are unable to facilitate that because we make sidewalks as part of the major street construction, right? So that we incorporate that all together like we're doing here. So once this construction is done, what will be the next time that we will have to redo this street? Like how long is this street gonna last? 30 years, 40 years? What would that look like?
I think we're always shooting for 30 years minimum. I mean, it certainly could go to 50. It's probably between 30 and 50, maybe in that 40-year mark.
Okay, thank you. And then also, so like the other streets that you and I discussed, Andy, I forgot the name of the street by the police station, that we did reconstruction there sometime and we didn't put sidewalks because we didn't have this policy available at the time, and now we kind of regret not having sidewalks there. So how long ago was that, and then how much longer do we have to wait for another reconstruction of that street to then complete the sidewalks?
Yeah, so that project in that neighborhood was 7 years ago, in the Westmoreland area, all built before the pandemic, so also before Complete Green Street. So we're looking at a 40, we'll just go 40-year, minimum to where that would, be reconstructed. And, it all depends on, kind of what's going on under the street. A lot of the stuff under these streets right now is, 60, sometimes 100 years old, the sewers. So that's usually kind of the driver of a lot of these projects. But yeah, we always look for, 40 years, 50 years.
Okay. So again, I just wanted to get those numbers also put into perspective, that we're not building for just today, but we're building for the 30 years to come. And anything that happened before Green Streets has some limitations that now we have to wait for that cycle to begin again. So, and this cycle is pretty long, decades in the making.
And it's also worth noting, we did assess for sidewalk. We used to do it also, and that also changed, similar of when we adopted Complete Green Streets.
That is correct. To just to remove some of the burden on the cost of the vision of Green Streets mission.
Correct.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Alder. Other comments or questions, or discussion on the motion, I should say. We have a motion on the floor to approve option 1. Is there further discussion? I just want to say a great conversation and a couple of things that we're likely going to want to follow up on with regard to Complete Green Streets at a future meeting where we're going to be reviewing Complete Green Streets. But I think it's wonderful that we're talking about the importance of sidewalks on both sides of the street in terms of improving safety, improving accessibility, and how much safer Madison is because of that policy. And I walk a lot in my neighborhood, and in the few places where there aren't sidewalks on both sides of the streets, I don't feel as safe. And it really reduces accessibility for me. And so I see that firsthand myself. Is there any further discussion? Okay, relative to the vote, I'm going to try and propose that we have unanimous consent. However, if anybody wishes to have a roll call vote or anybody wishes to be recorded as opposing the motion to approve option 1, we can certainly take a roll call vote. So does anyone prefer a roll call vote? If so, please raise your hand. Okay, so I'm going to assume a unanimous consent vote with regard to the motion to approve option 1. And just one more time, if anybody wishes to abstain or wishes a roll call vote, wishes to vote in opposition, please raise your hand now. Okay, motion is recorded as unanimous. Really great discussion on a project which there was not a lot of difference between the two. So interesting conversation, and I took some notes with regard to neighborhood yield streets and the minimums and some other things that we may want to discuss when we look at complete green streets next time around. So thanks so much to Mario and Andy and Sean and Allie for coming. And we'll look forward to Harold. I think you'll see it next at Board of Public Works, it sounds like.
Appreciate it, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so let's move on to item 9, which is our crossover reports from TC members who are members of other transportation related boards, committees, and commissions. Does anybody have anything to report tonight? Okay, seeing no hands. In terms of announcements, Jamie Acton was on for just a little while today, and I actually didn't even realize that she was on as part of a conference room. So we're going to plan to ask her to come to the next meeting if she's available. So at the beginning of the meeting, she can introduce herself and we can have an opportunity to chat with her as we did with Khrushchev at the beginning of his term. So our new general manager for Metro Transit did start on October 13th. And hopefully everybody has an opportunity to interact with Jamie. And I'm sure she would be more than happy to set up any time that anybody might want to meet with her individually as well. So that's the only announcement that I had. Relative to future agenda topics, there are some things that we've talked about today that I'm going to put on there. We do have an annual review of complete green streets. So maybe just mention to Kevin Yang or whomever with regard to some of our conversation tonight. We also had conversation about Safe Streets Madison and making sure we have a future agenda topic that doesn't just focus on the projects themselves, but gives us a review of the whole program and an opportunity to talk about that and potentially looking at the prioritization factors as well. And Alder Harrington McKinney asked us to focus in on school safety. And that's something that we may want to incorporate in with our quarterly traffic safety report, because they do focus a lot of the traffic safety on school safety as well. So we may be able to have even a quarterly look at school safety. And make sure we still have quorum. We do. Okay, good. Any other future agenda topics? When we look at November 5th, potentially we may have something come to us on Midvale Boulevard. That's still being discussed. Reviewing the results of the test removal of the peak hour traffic lanes on Williamson Street. Hopefully that'll be ready by November 5th. Possibly we might be asked to approve the removal of the westbound weekday afternoon peak hour parking restrictions on Speedway Road between Regent and Hillcrest. And potentially we might be looking at, Sean might be coming and talking a little bit about Milwaukee Street, and hopefully the annual crash facts report. That's new software they've been talking about. Hopefully that report will be ready at the next meeting. So anything else that anybody has with regard to future agenda topics we haven't already talked about? Okay, great. Then we need a motion to adjourn. Harold.
So moved.
Alder Martinez Rutherford.
Second.
Okay, thanks so much. I'm going to assume unanimous consent vote. And thanks again for a really great discussion tonight. We covered a lot of ground and some good thoughts about agenda topics for future meetings as well. So thanks so much, everybody. Your participation is much appreciated. Thanks.